Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to have another episode of Unicorn Tips with you, sponsored by Network Science. This is where we meet, where we invite pioneers and innovators from the deep tech world to interact with us on multiple topics which are of absolute importance to our listeners today. The objective here is that the pioneers share their insights with all our listeners. And there is so much, of course, for us to learn from this interaction. You would also know that we have another channel, which is co-create.ai, that is specifically for hearing the business challenges and the expectations from the startups that the global enterprises have. We've already done some phenomenal interviews on that channel as well. Now, this is time for us to look for and hear the side of the startups who are creating some amazing innovative solutions for all of us to use. This is a channel that we provide a platform so that we can hear tips, inspirational stories from unicorns or soon to be unicorns from the deep tech world. Just to clarify and just to reiterate, deep tech is a new umbrella term being used these days for all the emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, IoT, blockchain, augmented reality, virtual reality. While these are used in almost all the domains today, at Network Science, our focus is primarily on enterprise IT, application development, cybersecurity, Industry 4.0, fintech, and digital supply chain. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining in for this. Today, our focus is on $1 trillion application development industry, which of course, everyone knows, is writing millions and millions of lines of code. There are engineers who are getting trained and skilled on writing code. And of course, that's what we all engineers learned in our engineering days. But it's important to understand that there is a massive disruption that is taking place in this established industry. We hear words like low code, no code, and sometimes we feel, would there be any jobs available for people who have learned code all their life? This, of course, is the emergence of a new class of software assemblers who are not traditional software developers. To speak about this, there's no better person than Rakesh Sharma, who joins us today, who holds the patent for zero code application development platform. Welcome, Rakesh.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you for having me over on this program. And I'm really very, very interested to share some of my thoughts. And it's a privilege to have an interaction with you. And as I would say, that zero code is a technology waiting to happen. And no better time than the pandemic that brought us right into a status which was considered to be ahead of time, to be right in the middle of the situation. And with a shorter cycles to prove revenue, given the advent of the pandemic, the need for disruption has become inevitable. And the related technology obsolescence has also made the dependability on expensive solutions absolutely unviable. And hence we see zero code as a technology which was waiting to happen, whose time has come.
Oh, this is so exciting already, Rakesh. I know at Mobilus, you and your team are pioneering some very, very disruptive solutions and platforms for enterprises. I think I can already see that this is going to be a very fascinating conversation that we will have today. As I said, this is a new technology. You said this is the technology waiting to happen, and pandemic is the best time for it to happen. Can you help our audience understand in very simple terms, what does code, low code, and no code mean? What are the differences?
Mm-hmm. So coding has been what we've been doing all our lives. I learn a programming language and I get a use case and I write that syntax to build the logic. So that's pure programming and that's coding. And I build ultimately a whole stack of use cases put together in syntax gives me an application. So that's coding, and I can choose multiple languages to implement my goal. My goal is common. A goal is to create a solution. So I do it using a programming language. It could be C++, it could be Java, it could be Ruby on Rails, it could be any language that I choose that I have experience in. So that's typical coding. Low code is that as we started graduating, that what could be the next possibility after decades and decades of coding would be to reduce coding so that we become more efficient and faster, given that technologies were changing much faster than the decades that have gone by. And today you see, recently I saw a 1 TB mobile phone. 1 TB mobile phone. So it happened just in a year's time. And this 1 TB reaching 100 MB took us 3 years in the 90s. So the biggest problem that we face today is the speed at which the technology is advancing. So the low code guys decided that, okay, let us compensate for some of the coding by giving some forms which can be used in the coding process to reduce the time of coding. So that basically helps you to do about 30% of coding that can be taken away from the cumulative coding time. So that's low code. So they provide you with forms and easy syntax, which can be preloaded and added to building the logic. So you will still need a programmer because he has to complete the rest of the logic to complete the entire solution. So that's the low code way. So you reduce about 30% of your coding time. Zero code, why I consider zero code as more disruptive is that if I say that, boss, you don't need to write any code anymore. Whatever you want to do, look up the menu, drop down, put the things together, and it's going to bring it back as the logic that you want it to build. Now that's zero code. So you don't need all the developers building all the codes for all the platforms to give you one solution. So if I say that all of that is being done by one man, that can give you an Apple solution, an Android solution, and a web solution, is what I call a zero code, where you become agnostic to the quality or the experience or the language of the developers. So that's zero code.
Oh, this is of course fascinating, Rakesh, but isn't it too scary? No code at all? From millions of code to zero code, isn't that scary?
That's why I was called that you are a dreamer. And because we have been used, our power center is the more code I hold, that's my power in an organization. And now this is getting disrupted. The power is no longer there in the code because it is rapidly slipping away, melting away with new codes. How much can you do a handy blast and keep on repairing the code to keep it alive and active and absolutely ready for the current use? So that is adding to your support cost because your support team is becoming bigger than the actual delivery team. And that is what I feel as transformational. And it looks scary that suddenly I have a huge garden and all my trees are getting uprooted because they say that, boss, you don't need these trees anymore because you can grow them, you can uproot them and put another one. So that's the difference that we see in terms of why sometimes people find it difficult to understand. But if people are really, really understanding that digital transformation is the only way to progress, then this is inevitable. If you don't do it, you will be steamrolled.
Yeah, phenomenal. And so Rakesh, you mentioned a few things, of course, that the enterprises can take benefit out of There is a support cost that reduces. People don't hold the code as their kingdom, and it increases a lot of flexibility for organization. Maybe the speed in which they roll out new application increases significantly. So there are obvious benefits. What kind of is so there are obviously organizations. For a lot of companies, this is a new concept altogether, right? Low code in itself is a new concept, and it's been possibly only a couple of years where organizations have started to speak about low code. Gartner comes out with a magic quadrant, I think, over the last 2 years on the low code space, and you've come up with saying you don't even need low code, you need absolute zero code, right? Not a single line of code. So from an organization standpoint, what is the importance of their consider zero code outside of obviously support challenges and things like that?
Okay. See, the first thing is that every time a new technology has come forth, there are a lot of these agencies like Gartner who start triggering the change. And that's how because most of these large enterprises are subscribers to some of these research companies to see what's happening in various verticals in the market and what kind of technologies are coming forth. Now, there are a set of companies who are very keen to adopt new things. And the biggest thing that I see as a change in terms of how Gartner has evolved with respect to coding is that they created a low code quadrant, and now they are also writing low code / zero code, which means that they are foreseeing that this is the future, and we better start mentioning this now and also highlight some of the companies that are trying to be in this space. And the way we look at it from a company's point of view, the zero code inevitability is basically to look at whether you can do a proof of concept to validate your concerns. That's the first thing. And today, when I come to an organization, I just say, I'm not confident. I don't say just try it. I would say just do it. Because I have enough validations in the market where companies have really performed all possible KPIs to see if it takes care of those which are their key deliverables at their level, whether it's a CIO or a CDO or a head of technology. So I think the adoption, jumping into it as a small project or a project that can be a representative project, can actually be the trigger for them to actually transform the whole organization.
This is brilliant. Rakesh, could you possibly name 3 use cases where organizations can use this or have used this, your platform to roll out zero code solutions for their businesses?
Okay, so we are already working with a Fortune 500 company, and based on the fact that we got an opportunity to replace a very large firm, was basically that particular project did not take off after almost completing phase 1 of the project. And we got an opportunity to start from ground zero, because that's what we said, that we're going to throw away whatever has been done and we will do it our way. Then only you try and give it to us. And what we ended up building was the entire marketing and sales solution for their retail and distribution network. And which we further included almost every facets of order management, of leads management, of needs management, stocks, inventory, sales invoicing. We have even events. You could actually, if there is a particular event like Ganesh Chaturthi in the Western region, you could have regional specific events or programs that would give additional discounts to the distributors. So you could have regional programs pushed through the solution. So it gave them so much of control in terms of the visibility of what was happening even at the last mile, where you are selling a small amount of that product to an end user, you could capture that. So that visibility has improved their capability to forecast. The forecast capability means that they can plan production. Plan production means that they can plan or reduce their inventory. Inventory makes it that if you have the economic order quantity, you can maintain your back-end raw material consumption. So that is the whole chain actually gets totally electrified when you have this kind of information, specifically with your planning. And reducing inventory is the biggest cost today with enterprises which are into any of the, I would say, manufacturing segments. I would say logistics segments. I would say all of these segments are heavy on inventory. Then the other side of the product that we have done is on the BFSI sector, where the customers are a large variety of customers, and ability to reach out to them, to be able to do and validate customers, validate their residence, validate their earning capability, validation of their existence by way of Aadhaar card validation or whatever, and proposing a solution. It could be an insurance solution, it could be a home loan or a car loan or a vehicle loan based on their earning capability, age. So all that logic that finally culls and brings you an output that the risks index of this customer is X, Y, Z, based on which he's eligible for this loan. All of this is possible that we have to do on the solution which we have done. And the biggest advantage is we have done this at less than half the time, less than 2/3 of the resources, less than in terms of the cost. We have reduced more than 50% of their cost. And then we say, sorry, we don't need your support staff, not required. Now that is transformational, that is disruption. And that is why I confidently say that I don't need to do any POC, just jump into and do it. All KPIs have been taken care of. Give me the list, I will fill up the KPIs and give it back to you. That this is what we will give you at the end of it.
Fantastic, very powerful. So, Rakesh, Mobilis has developed this as a platform, or this is a service? What does this? How do you really deliver zero code? Do you build this grounds up, or you have a platform that does this for the clients?
So now, answering actually to your first question, that isn't it concerning for the CIO to adopt a zero code technology? Isn't it worrisome? And that is the reason why we created a services arm. It's actually a technology ready to be licensed out to as many enterprises they want. And then we say, don't worry, we're going to do your first few projects by ourselves. Prove it to you, train your guys, you take it over, it's yours. And that ensures that any issues or risks that they see, we mitigate them during the building process, during the launch process, and subsequently the next 3 months of execution. So that the cloud architecture works fine, the scalability works fine, the product performance is working fine, the features are working well, they get that confidence. That's when they actually say, okay, my team should take it up. And that's exactly what we see in terms of if I have to plot an 18-month graph for this Fortune 500 company, I can actually plot every month how this transformation has happened and how the confidence level or a confidence index, not just at the lower end of the higher end of the management, but also at the lower end, that they're ready to take it up and say that, yeah, this sounds easy. And somebody calls me up, say, Rakesh, you know what? Somebody called me up from my boss. He said that we urgently want one solution. I actually tried and built it up and I gave it in the morning. So in the morning, he did it in 4 hours and he said, I could give it. And he was shocked. How did you make this app? Otherwise, I would have taken at least a month's time to actually figure out what I have to do, what language to use, and how to build that logic. I could just immediately do it. And this is where he realized the power of what you can get in your hands when you start doing it yourself.
Awesome. I'm very intrigued to understand how did it all start for you. You did mention that you saw an opportunity. People call you a dreamer, and I could really understand after listening to you for the last 10 minutes why are you called a dreamer. But how did it all start? Give me your background. Of course, I know the background. I'm just trying to use that for our audience to understand where did it all come together for you.
I think I'm quite a enthusiast in terms of I'm a caterpillar. I always dream that I'll become a butterfly one day. And I keep eating. My job is to keep eating so that I become a pupa and ultimately become a bud. And that habit has been there for years. And where I was working at the earlier ages as an engineer, as electrical electronics engineer, fortunately or unfortunately for the company, they exposed me to IT. And that's where the trigger happened, that I realized that the opportunity is so immense, and it can really be a path breaker. And the more I was trained on it, the more I actually got excited about what I could do. And I think ultimately it reached a kind of a point where I had just no option but to drop it and literally go out to large enterprises, the big companies like Reliance, Tata, and Birlas, and write to them, here is, I've got an idea, can you fund me? Because I was an employee, I wouldn't. So that's how it all started. And somebody was, Mr. Money, for example, said, okay, guys, I like what you're doing, come over. I said, we don't have money for the tickets. Okay, pick it up from our Delhi office. So that's the journey, how it started. That somebody thought that these guys are onto something. And the moment you get a toehold, we made it a foothold and opened the door. And that's what has been my entrepreneurial journey, from one company to the other. And the last one being being Opal, which was acquired by HP, where I was exposed to mobile printing because it was a failed project. And again, in a meeting, I saw these stacks of files lying unused for a while. And I said, what is this? Oh, these are failed projects. I said, can I have a look at it? They gave it to me. And yes, they gave it to me. So I got triggered. Why did it fail? Can we do it all over again? He said, if you can convince the business guys, you can. So I convinced them, raised money internally, and we launched HP as a print, which is today HP as a print all over the world. We launched it in Japan. And then that's when I realized what the power of mobile. And I said, look, every country is going to, every enterprise is going to use it. And with more and more operating systems coming, it was no longer Microsoft's game. It was no longer only Microsoft's field. Apple came up, Android came up, and it's a clear path that there will be one solution, but three various ways of consumption. And hence this idea of Mobilus, when I wrote the first page and convinced one of these HP partners in Japan, Akira, to join me as a partner, that let's do it. And let's do it outside of HP and build this up. So that's how Mobilus started.
I'm also intrigued to understand the logo of Mobilus, and you did mention that sometime back, and I thought I will pick that question up at the right time. You mentioned to me one day that you've taken 6 months to work on the logo. I want to understand that story, Rakesh.
Sure. See, the idea was that I was called a dreamer every time I went to Silicon Valley on Sand Hill Road and share my thoughts. And he's saying, because the fact that I had got an exit, they would at least give me that time to meet up. That, okay, this guy must be thinking something which could be interesting for us. But nobody actually found it interesting at that point in time. They said, this is too much of a dream to actually back, Then I said, why it is just a dream? And then I said, okay, I'll come back to you when I'm ready with it. These are just the thoughts I'm bouncing off. And actually sat down what I represent in terms of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do something which is very disruptive. It needs to be global because the disruption on a scale that we are looking at has to be global. And it has to be of a quality that large enterprises can adopt. Only then the change will be very effective. So the logo actually represents that historically platforms have been represented by chameleons. Now the chameleons are very, very dark in color. They are very serious looking chameleons. So I picked up the chameleon and I started playing with the chameleon. Boss, you're not going to be that old 60s chameleon. You're going to be this colorful, energetic, youthful chameleon who smiles and can actually be very, very versatile. Hence, you have a colored chameleon with different colors and a smiley face and very, very big eyes. That's what I call them, compound eyes, so that they can see all possible opportunities coming up in what we are creating. So first I caught hold of the chameleon and I say, okay, I'm going to make it sit on the globe because my outreach is global. And that's what so I made it sit on the globe. And then I said that the best car I like is the BMW mostly because of the quality that the logo itself is a mark of quality. And then I put that ring around that whole stuff to say that I'm going to represent that quality. And that quality comes on the algorithm that gets a patent. Otherwise, I'm not going to do this business. So it's a combination of that ring, the globe, and the chameleon, and the colors give us the flexibility and agnostic ability of the platform that we represent.
This is so fascinating. I don't want this conversation to end very soon, Rakesh. So I'm going to crack on. So, you of course are very passionate about what you do. You also mentioned that initially no one really took you seriously. They said what you're trying to do is something which is very outrageous. Obviously, you got maybe a very discouraging response at the initial stages, but then you've pulled it off, right? Because you had the conviction to make on what you were doing. So what are your tips for the fellow entrepreneurs, people who are or professionals who want to come into entrepreneurship? What would you recommend to them?
See, the first thing is the very fact that the person is thinking about being an entrepreneur is that he's thinking about taking that risk. Because the ratio in California is now a 9 out of 10 fail. But the ratio also says that you survive the first 5 years, then you're likely to sail through. So you need to understand that this is the journey and you are on the edge of the cliff. So you need to walk, but walk slow, and there is no shortcut. And there is no alternative. You think Tina factor, there is no alternative. You have to burn your bridges to achieve what you want to do. The first year when I started up as an entrepreneur, every time I failed, yaar wo job hi acha tha. The job was really good. I should have gone. Should I go back? So that relief. Oh, my boss told me that whenever you want to come back, you just come back. Now every time those lines would give me confidence. Yaar, now the point is, if I realize that no, I'm no longer going to be able to get back to the job, that is what gives you the confidence to go and break through the walls and achieve what you want to do. So I think these are the things that I always tell them, that you have to understand that there is no shortcut and have the power to continue to breathe at low times. You don't have to run, but you need to continue to almost be in meditative state with the focus and trust and belief that you have on what you want to create. If you don't have that, don't start it. Because you need to do your homework, that I believe in it and I know that what I'm creating, it has value.
You're absolutely right. This also reminds me of The Dark Knight. If you've seen that movie where James Bruce falls into the well, and then he tries to come out of the well with a rope attached to him, and he's just not able to do it. Every time he jumps, he falls, and then there is this old experienced man who says, "Try to remove the rope, and then jump. You have no other alternative but to make the jump successful."
There is just no.
Because if you don't, you're going to fail and you're going to die. So
you will not be able to come out of it.
You're not going to come out of the well. So you have no choice but to do it. And that's the way he removes the rope and takes that leap, then makes it happen. Because leap of faith, absolutely. I think for the last 18 months being an entrepreneur myself, I've realized what leap of faith is all about. So what you're saying is absolutely right. Let's come back to Mobilus in specific. Where do you see Mobilus in the next 3 years?
Mobilus, I see that a very able firm acquiring us, and I feel very proud that that company where I will work is able to give the scale that this technology deserves. Because I feel that the growth, the inevitability of transformation can go to any lens from where we have started. So in 3 years, I think I would reach enough a scale which can actually be increased 10 times or 100 times by a much larger organization. And I feel that this technology, for every enterprise who will be our customers right now, will actually reach the next level because they will be represented at a much stronger level. So that's what I see ourselves, because this technology needs and can grow to that level at any point in time, given the fact that it's already proven its worth.
So if you have to speak to the enterprises today who are contemplating, low code platforms or zero code platforms, what would you tell them? Why should they not look for anything else but for Mobile's platform? Talk also about the patent that you have and how it gives you the pole position in that zero code world.
See, the biggest thing for the enterprise today is that they can divert their resources to more value-added technologies to work on. There is AI, there ML, they can do a lot of work on further improving their software capabilities, knowing fully well that what money they are spending on resources to build solutions can be 100% automated. So that's the first thing, that here is it, I have a chance to divert 2/3 of my resource for something that I am unable to do because of cost reasons. And here comes a company and says, take this away, you can still do as much, or in fact, double of this with the same resource, with 1/3 of the resource. That's the first one. Second is that you do away with your entire support program. Today, the inevitability of being in the black is paramount. Given the pandemic situation, given the losses that the world has incurred, the need of us is to be effective, productive, and stay in the black to be able to sustain through these times. And I think it's not about cutting jobs, it's about reducing costs by diverting resources. So that saves you money. And finally, you have the ability to be flexible, that the white elephant can dance, can be flexible to the needs of a rapidly changing environment. I have very, very small windows these days. We were shut down again after 1 year, April to June. Now I have we don't know the third COVID wave is going to come. So we have a short window of opportunity of 6 months. Do this, make an app, make a solution, get your revenues in. We don't know what's going to come. So the obsolescence is high, opportunities are limited, time is limited. You need to make the most of it. So the decisions, response to the market, all this technology can help you do.
Great inputs for customers. I'm sure as we take this video out there, a lot of people will come back requesting for more information, Rakesh, based on what they've heard from you. I'm going to switch last a minute or two into just knowing you a bit better. This is a fun section. Quick rapid fire questions. Want an answer of whatever comes to your mind. So let's understand that. What's your superpower? And given a choice to have one more.
I believe in this concept of exo world. I want a very seamless connection between Earth, Moon, and Mars, where I will have 3 residences.
Mm.
We will reach
yeah,
there.
I mean,
We're almost there. We're almost there.
Yeah.
Probably by the time I'm going to be another 20 years down the line, I think this is a possibility.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So what's outside of Mobilus? What's outside of the work that you do? What are your passions? What are your hobbies?
I actually have no hobbies, but I have a lot of passion for learning. So I picked up saxophone and I wanted to learn. It was a very difficult instrument. But then using that, I actually went back to the history of music. I learned how music is made. And now I know how to write music. So the idea, I have this habit. Then one day I decided to paint my wall. So I actually learned about painting. So how to paint a wall, how to finish it up, how to scrub it, how to move your brush. So I have this huge habit of knowing, and I think that even I remember when I first started as an entrepreneur, that zeal to know, to explore, to keep digging is something that is my passion. And probably that ultimately my hobbies keep changing. Today my hobby is saxophone. Maybe next time I could be doing something else. So I think that's what it is.
Brilliant. So much to learn from you, Rakesh. If you had only 3 apps on your smartphone, Which one would you pick?
So for me, the word intriguing is actually intriguing. So I always like Google Earth. I explore a lot of Google Earth. I also like night sky. See a lot of stars, and I love them. And because I always feel how connected it can all be. And of course, I always like Kindle to be with me all the time.
Brilliant. If you could write a book about your life, what would be the title?
There are two words that come to my mind: the snorkeler or the Johnny Walker. So snorkeler means that I can continue to breathe no matter how deep I am underwater. And Johnny Walker means that I keep walking, whether I'm crawling, but at least I'm moving. And I think that has been my motto all my life. And I would actually write a book with this as the name of the book.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And one last question. You of course, interacted with us over the last 3 odd months. Which Avenger would you relate network science to?
Straight Ant-Man. You know why?
Ant-Man.
Yes. And you know why? It can miniaturize itself and can actually sneak through any creeks and crevices, and it can become massive. It can move mountains.
Fabulous.
And that's what we want out of network science.
This is so inspiring, Rakesh. In a very short time, in the short sentences, you obviously encouraged us quite a lot. But I'm really fascinated by this conversation today that we had. Unfortunately, we have to cut this short. However, we might have loved to continue, but I think it was fabulous. It was phenomenal speaking to you, a dreamer who not only have dreamt but also has come out with a very disruptive platform that obviously is going to disrupt the entire industry as we know it. Move away, guys. Move away the coding. Move away the low codes. I think zero code is here to stay. And as Rakesh says, its time is now. It's time, and the time is right. Mobilis as a platform is the perfect platform which understands how to build zero code mobile apps across all platforms, across all devices. It has also proven its use cases in multiple Fortune 500 Global 1000 companies, has delivered value. So I think it is time for us to have a look at that platform and explore the possibilities through a zero code way. Rakesh, it's a pleasure hosting you. Thank you very much for joining in today.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you for your trust and belief. I'm sure we're going to go together and march those skills.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye-bye. Cheers.